Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Tara Westover's memoir, Educated.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a great summary here, and I think there's a lot to unpack.
Definitely. And,
Yeah,
this is not your typical coming-of-age story.
right.
It really makes you think about what education even is and how it shapes, not just, like the facts,
Right.
but who you are as a person.
Yeah, I love that. And you've set us up perfectly here.
Thanks.
Because imagine this. Okay.
Okay.
Growing up in rural Idaho. Okay, so already we're kind of out there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You're completely isolated from mainstream society, and you're being raised by survivalists
Oh, wow.
who are prepping for the apocalypse.
Okay.
No formal schooling, no doctors, just your family. And their very unique and sometimes extreme beliefs.
Wow.
That's the reality Tara Westover was born into.
It's just incredible to think about how that shapes a person's worldview, right?
Yeah.
Like everything she learned, every experience she had was filtered through this lens of distrust of the outside world.
Right.
It wasn't just learning practical skills. It was about being skeptical of anything that challenged her family's ideology.
It's such a good point, and it makes you think, just how much our early environment shapes our understanding of the world, right?
Absolutely.
Like we take it for granted so much.
And imagine for her formal education was just like an alien concept.
Right?
Like her early education wasn't about, textbooks and tests.
Yeah.
It was about canning peaches and preparing for, a world that's ending.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
It's like she was raised in a different reality almost. And then she makes this huge leap and enrolls at Brigham Young University.
BYU.
Can you even imagine the culture shock?
It's more than culture shock.
Right.
It's like having the foundation of your reality just completely shaken.
Yeah.
Suddenly she's encountering ideas and perspectives that are the opposite of everything she's ever known. This isn't just learning new facts. This is challenging her entire belief system.
It's got to be so disorienting, right?
Yeah.
Like almost learning a new language,
Sure.
but for reality itself.
It's a great way to put it.
So what was that like for her to have such deeply held beliefs challenged so abruptly?
I mean, you can imagine it was a turbulent experience.
Yeah.
That there's this constant inner turmoil as she's trying to make sense of these worldviews that clash.
Right.
Think about it, like the foundation of her entire life is suddenly up in the air. It's not just intellectual, It's a deeply personal and emotional struggle.
And I think this is where Educated becomes more than just one woman's journey.
I agree.
It's about this universal experience
Totally.
of having your most deeply held beliefs challenged.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you think about your own life.
Absolutely.
The assumptions that you hold.
Yeah.
Those moments that made you kind of re-examine your understanding of the world.
Exactly. We all have those aha moments
Right.
where something just shifts your perspective. Right.
And Tara's story, it's like that, but magnified,
Times 1,000.
Yeah.
So she's in this incredibly challenging environment.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's being turned upside down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this sense of liberation, too.
Oh, yeah.
All these new possibilities are opening up.
Totally.
Her worldview is expanding.
Right.
It's a very interesting paradox, I think.
It's the double-edged sword of education, isn't it?
Right.
Like it's liberating.
Yeah.
But it can also be isolating.
Right.
As she's gaining knowledge and seeing the world in a new light.
Uh-huh.
She's also starting to feel alienated from her family and the community that used to be her whole world.
Right.
It's like that saying, you can't go home again. But in this case, home is more than just a place. It's a whole way of thinking.
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
Thanks.
And as she keeps going deeper with her education, this tension between her new knowledge and her upbringing, that just intensifies.
It really does.
And I imagine this leads to some pretty intense conflicts with her family.
Yeah.
Especially with her father.
Absolutely. She starts to absorb all these new ideas, and she begins to question her father's extremist views.
Right.
This is just a quite tradition that they've always just accepted without question.
Yeah.
One of the most striking examples, I think, is her growing interest in history.
Oh, interesting.
Her father saw history as a way to reinforce his beliefs.
Okay.
But Tara starts to see it as this complex, tapestry of perspectives and interpretations.
So instead of just accepting the narrative she grew up with,
Right.
she's realizing that history is multifaceted.
Exactly.
There are different ways of interpreting these events.
And that directly challenges her father's worldview,
Yeah.
which is built on the idea that there's only one right way.
Uh-huh.
So for him, her pursuing education wasn't just about learning, it was a direct threat to their entire way of life.
So it's not just teenage rebellion.
Right.
It's this ideological clash
Exactly.
with extremely high stakes.
And it's important to note, her questioning wasn't just defiance.
Yeah.
It was a genuine struggle.
Uh-huh.
Like she was really trying to reconcile her new knowledge with her upbringing.
Yeah, it's like this internal struggle playing out.
Absolutely. And it shows how powerful education can be.
It's not just Tara's story.
Right.
It's this bigger idea that knowledge can actually change lives.
Absolutely.
And it really makes us think about the limits of our own perspectives.
Yeah.
And how important it is to always be seeking new information and understanding.
It highlights this idea that true education, it's not about memorizing facts or getting good grades.
Right.
It's about developing critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
questioning assumptions, and being okay with maybe being wrong.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That is a big one.
Right.
Yeah. And being open to the fact that learning is a lifelong process.
Absolutely.
Like, it never stops.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. And, that connects right back to the listener.
Right.
Think about a time when you learned something new.
Right.
And it totally changed your perspective on something.
Or challenged a belief that you had for a long time.
Yeah. And those aha moments, I feel like that's what makes education so powerful.
Exactly. And Tara's story is like, those aha moments over and over again.
It's just amplified.
Yeah. And it's important to remember this journey wasn't easy for her.
Right.
There were consequences.
Oh, yeah.
She had to deal with a lot of emotional turmoil.
Right.
As she was trying to balance her education with her family's beliefs.
It makes you wonder, how do you navigate those emotions,
Yeah.
When learning leads to conflict with the people you love most?
That's a tough one.
It's a difficult question, but I think Tara's story forces us to confront it,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's a question a lot of us face, right?
Right.
At some point in our lives. You
Yeah.
know, when you're growing and changing and it clashes with your family's beliefs and traditions.
Right.
It's tough.
And in Tara's case, it was like incredibly high stakes.
Oh, yeah.
She was essentially forced to choose between her family
Right.
and her education.
That's a hard choice.
It's a heartbreaking decision to even have to consider.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also speaks to the impact that knowledge can have on our lives.
Totally.
Like, sometimes the pursuit of truth requires us to make really difficult choices, to redefine relationships and to forge our own path.
It's a powerful reminder that personal growth often involves sacrifice.
Yeah.
And in Tara's case, it meant maybe losing the support system that she had always known.
Right.
That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. And self-awareness.
Yeah.
And I think it really highlights the power of Educated as a memoir.
Oh, for sure.
It goes beyond just recounting events.
Right.
It grapples with these really complex, emotional and philosophical questions. And it makes you think about your own values.
Totally.
The things that you're willing to sacrifice for and the choices that you would make if you were faced with similar dilemmas.
It makes you think about the role of family and community.
Yeah.
In shaping what we believe.
Right.
And what happens when those beliefs are challenged.
Right, by information.
Exactly. And it reminds us that even the things we feel most strongly about can change,
Right.
as we learn and experience new things.
So we've talked about Tara's incredible journey from this, isolated upbringing to a life that was transformed by education.
Right.
We've talked about her struggles, the family conflicts, and her personal growth.
All of it.
But what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
It's the big question.
What can we actually learn from Tara's experience?
I think one of the most important things is that education is more than just knowing stuff.
Right.
It's about thinking critically, questioning things.
Yeah.
And being willing to face truths that might be uncomfortable.
Right.
It's realizing that our understanding of the world, it's always changing.
Yeah.
And that there's always something new to learn.
It's about being curious, asking questions.
Yes.
And being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
That's huge.
It is huge.
Yeah,
and just embracing this idea that learning is a lifelong process.
Absolutely.
It never stops.
It's a journey.
It's a journey.
Yeah. And it's about recognizing the power of knowledge to transform lives, to break down barriers, and empower people to create their own destinies.
Tara's story is just like a testament to that.
I agree.
The human capacity for growth and resilience, and just this relentless pursuit of truth.
Yes.
even when it's hard.
Even when it comes at a cost.
It's inspiring.
It really is.
And her story brings up these questions about, loyalty about his personal growth, belonging versus like following your own individual path.
Right. Like, where do you draw the line?
It's a reminder that knowledge can be a force for change.
Oh, yeah.
Both in our own lives and in the world around us.
And it highlights the importance of understanding different perspectives.
Yeah.
And being willing to have conversations,
Right.
even when we disagree.
Even when it's hard.
Yes, and to do it respectfully.
Right. And Tara's story shows us that real growth often comes from stepping outside of our comfort zones.
Yeah.
And engaging with ideas that challenge us.
For sure. And it gives us hope.
Yeah.
That even when things are tough,
yeah,
education can be a path to freedom, to discovering who you are,
yeah,
and to understanding yourself and the world better.
And it's like this reminder that we all have the potential to learn and grow, no matter where we come from.
No matter our background.
Our circumstances.
It's never too late.
So as we're kind of wrapping up our deep dive into Educated, I want to leave you with this thought. Tara had to choose between her family and her education.
It was a tough choice.
It was a heartbreaking choice.
Yeah.
But it shows how much knowledge can change our lives and the sacrifices that we sometimes have to make, to find truth and to discover ourselves.
It's a question we all have to ask ourselves.
Right.
What are we willing to give up for knowledge and personal growth?
Tara's story is like this powerful reminder that seeking knowledge can change us.
Yeah.
It can challenge our beliefs.
For sure.
Make us redefine our relationships. And ultimately, it can make us embrace the unknown.
It's a powerful message.
It is a powerful message.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Educated.
It's been a pleasure.
If you want to learn more about Tara's story,
definitely check out the book.
Definitely check out the book.
Yeah, it's an incredible read.
It's a really thought-provoking read that'll stay with you.
For a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And as always,
keep exploring.
Keep exploring, questioning.
And keep learning.
Because Tara's story shows us that knowledge has the power to transform lives.
Absolutely.
Not just our own, but the lives of the people around us.
That's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah, it really makes you think, would you be willing to pay that price for knowledge and self-discovery?
It's a big question.
It's a huge question. And it's a reminder that, learning isn't always easy or comfortable. Yeah.
Right.
It could be really challenging in ways that we don't expect.
Absolutely. And Tara's story is like a perfect example of how pursuing knowledge can take you to these crossroads where you have to make tough choices.
And figure out what's important.
Yeah, your priorities and values.
And her journey, it reminds us that education isn't just about the classroom.
Oh, definitely.
It's this constant exploration and questioning.
Always questioning.
And growing throughout our lives.
It's about looking at the world in new ways and realizing that maybe what we thought we knew needs to change.
It could be totally wrong.
Totally.
We have to be open to that.
Yeah, embrace the idea that learning never really ends.
It's lifelong,
It's a lifelong journey, and, sometimes it takes us to uncomfortable places and makes us confront things we don't want to.
Those deeply held beliefs.
But that's where the growth happens.
That's where the magic happens.
Right.
Tara's story, I think it just shows the power of courage and resilience when things get tough.
For sure.
She chose knowledge. She chose self-discovery.
Even when it was hard.
Even when it meant losing people she loved and facing huge obstacles.
Yeah, she had to make those sacrifices.
It reminds us that we can all overcome things.
And create our own path.
And create our own path, exactly. And it's a reminder that education isn't just about, personal growth.
Right.
It's also about
making a difference.
Yeah, empowering ourselves to make a positive impact on the world.
The more we learn, the more we understand.
Yeah.
The better we can make things.
We can make the world a better place.
Yes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Educated, I want to leave you with this.
Okay.
Tara's story shows us that even though it's challenging, seeking knowledge is worth it.
It's a journey worth taking.
It's a journey that leads us to a deeper understanding
of ourselves,
of the world.
And our place in it.
And our place in it, exactly. Thank you for joining us for this incredible deep dive into Educated.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope that Tara's journey has inspired you to keep learning and keep growing.
And keep questioning.
And keep questioning.
Because that's how we learn.
That's how we grow. Until next time, stay curious and embrace the power of learning.
Absolutely.